Welcome to Heroes 2, the making of the game. My name is Vanessa Pizzuto, and today we are talking to Arnaldo Oliveira and Jader Feijo about what goes behind making a game like this. Welcome, Arnaldo and Jader. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Before we dive into the game, tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you are at the moment.
Well, I'm currently living in Brazil. I work as a project manager. For this project specifically, I supervise a little bit from afar. I was more directly involved with Heroes when it started about 10 years ago. But I help Jeff, who is the current project manager for Heroes, and I help some Nivis at the General Conference in a lot of other projects with the workflow, understanding what the project is, putting together teams so that we can deliver projects like this.
What about you?
I'm in London, although I'm Brazilian like Arnaldo. I've been living in London for the past 13 years. And my involvement with Heroes 2 is as a solutions architect. So I look at the entire technology and try to figure out which technologies we can use to actually make the game work and bring it to life.
Absolutely. So it's great to talk to you both because when we grab a phone and we start playing a game, we seldom think about all the people behind that made this possible. And Arnaldo, I know you were working as the project manager for the first version, Heroes the Game. Tell me, what did that involve? What were you doing as the project manager?
Well, at the end, I was supervising a team of about 180 volunteers, mainly with translation. We had to translate every question in the game. At the time, we had about, I believe there were like 3,000 questions in the game at that time. And we also have to translate the whole UI of the game. When you open up the game, each screens, they have instructions, they have tips on what you need to do throughout the game. All of that needs to be translated as well. And there's also descriptions that goes on the app store so people can read and understand a little bit more about the game before they download the game. And I also helps creating a lot of the initial questions. And as some like to put it, my job is telling people what to do when they should do it. So I make sure everything is running smoothly. If people have if they're facing barriers, I try to understand what those are and to find a solution with them and pretty much helping them move forward with the project.
So this was some time ago, and you probably didn't have some of the softwares that we have today. And I am assuming that the team was all over the world like it is now. Now I know we have part of the team in the Philippines, part in Venezuela, part in the States, all over. So how did you manage that, the time zones and the team all over the place?
Well, today it has become quite easy because we use an amazing project management platform called Monday.com, and with full of automations, and people can see exactly where everything is and what they need to do and when. But back then, we pretty much relied on Google Sheets and Excel spreadsheets, and there was a lot of manual transferring of information from one place to the other. And I had to keep control of how many questions had been translated in one language because, for example, to release the game, you needed a minimal amount of questions. So in a Google Sheet, I would have, okay, how is German going? We have translated 100 questions for Abraham, but there are no questions translated for Daniel. So yeah, so there was a lot of transfer information between one sheet to the other. And it was a bit challenging, but we learned a lot. A lot of the knowledge we gained through this process, especially in creating and translating these questions, helped us a lot now working on Heroes 2.
And I heard that both for the first version and the second version, you had a small budget compared to what most studios would have. So what were some of the strategies you put in place, Jader and also Arnaldo, to stretch that money and make the most out of it?
Jay, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I think from my perspective, it was obviously we were always thinking of ways to use technology to make things more cost effective, right? So we developed a tool internally called Heroes Maker, which allowed Arnaldo to control that flow a lot more easily. So now obviously he has things like Monday.com. He didn't have that for Heroes 1. So and we're still using that today. Even Heroes 2 is a tool that we continue to maintain, and we brought forward all the way to Heroes 2. So because I think if you have the right tools, when you have a very constrained budget, you don't want to waste any resources, right? Anything you have, you want to make sure that you get the most out of it. So we needed to make sure that the flow of the question translations and creation was happening in the most efficient possible way. So that software allowed us to coordinate all of that.
I wonder, this is a side question. Oh, go ahead, Arnaldo.
No, I was just going to say that because it was a large project, and as I mentioned earlier, we had about 180 people working in the project. And with a small budget, we ended up having a lot of volunteers, especially on the translation side. So we had to do a constant and big work in motivating the team and updating them what's going on, transferring the vision of the game to them, the objectives, the reason why we were creating this, why was this so important for the mission we were trying to accomplish. So yeah, there was a lot of motivating going on all the time to make sure people kept on working and helping us through the process.
I can imagine. I mean, motivating a huge team of volunteers. And I wonder, because we're talking about volunteer work, we're talking about a small budget, and I am aware that you both grew up in a developing country, as I did. And I wonder if some of that early experiences, actually gave you tools and ideas for handling this now. What do you think?
Oh, sure. Well, I could tell you many stories of growing up, how we had to sometimes choose between certain things to others. I'm not going to get into details here, but this gives you a bit of experience, teaches you how to deal with situations like this. So what should I do first? Is this really important to be doing now? What is the priority here? Okay, so this person is having trouble, but I don't have budget to invest in this now. So what do I do? So all of these questions, all of these decisions need to be made all the time when you have a small budget. So for sure, all the experiences in being brought up in a developing country helped us a lot through the process, gave us a better insight and helped us to make better decisions. So to keep on developing the game.
If you had to choose, for both of you, you can think about this and tell me, both of you, if you had to choose the toughest part and the most rewarding part of the job, what would you choose? What would it be, the toughest part and the most amazing part of what you've done so far for Heroes?
For me, the toughest part, apart from having to work with volunteers and motivate them all the time, was because at the time releasing a game like this was brand new. Nobody was doing it, and a lot of people didn't believe on the project. And we had people trying to demotivate us. We had people saying, "Okay, this is not going to work," and maybe you should do this in a completely different way. So that was tough because we knew what we wanted, we knew what the vision was, and seeing people around us that didn't really believe in the same things was very tough. And the most rewarding was when we finally released the game, and to see the 10 million plus minutes being played everywhere in the world, seeing the game being downloaded in countries which are very difficult to enter with the gospel, like Arabic-speaking countries and other countries around the world, which I'm not going to mention now. But it was very rewarding to see kids all over the world playing the game and talking about it. And we got to go to some events where we presented the games. And when we got there, people used to come to us saying how amazing the game was and how motivating it was to revive these stories through the game. So this was really nice to hear.
For me, I think it's the most difficult part was the day before release. and the most rewarding part is the day after release, because the day before release, we, as techies, we're usually working late, making sure that the final details of the project are in place, and fixing the last minute bugs. And the day after is when we actually see people, using the game and having fun, and that's really rewarding. Like that process of really pouring everything you have into something, and then seeing it come to fruition the day after. So that's really rewarding. As Arnaldo said, it's fantastic to see that.
24 hours apart between the worst day and the best day. Arnaldo, in another video, you were talking about assembling the team and the importance of choosing the right people. How do you even go about that? How do you know, yes, this person is the right person for our team?
Well, for Heroes 2, we had a list of requirements, a list of professionals we needed to continue developing the game. Because for Heroes 2 especially, now we have all the characters in 3D. We have a lot of new features, and the game is looking different. So first of all, you start looking for, okay, these are the professionals we need. How do we find them? Then we had some campaigns, ad campaigns on Facebook to help us finding these people. And I mentioned this in another video as well, but it was very disappointing very often that sometimes we would find these amazing professionals with experiences in very large corporations where they had built amazing games before, games that today you played on Xbox, on PlayStation. And sometimes when they heard that the game was about the Bible, they would jump out. They'd say, okay, I'm not interested. I don't want to hear about this. Yeah. And this was really hard. So our art director, when we started Heroes 2, for example, he had to interview about 70 people to choose one. It's a very long process. So we know what we want. And when we found some amazing professionals, some of them would jump out of the process. It was also a challenge.
It is good to hear this, because as we were saying before, you really don't realize the process that goes behind this. And you both have been engaged in the making of the first game and the second. I wonder, when Sam picked up that phone and said, hey, come and help me again, what crossed your mind? What were you guys thinking?
Well, it was funny because I had met Sam in 2008. At the end of 2008, I had invited him to be the preacher in one evangelistic campaign we were working on, and we had to move back to Brazil, and we came back about 2 years later in 2010. And as soon as I got back to London, in fact, we've told this story in a video before. He came with this crazy idea of releasing a Christmas album, and it was like the end of September, beginning of October, and we started the project. And one day I talked to him and said, "Son, listen, there's no way we can deliver this. People are not willing to work, and they have very tight schedule." And he sends me an email back saying, "Okay, get a grip, talk to people. Failure is not an option." So whenever he calls me, I'm only telling this story because whenever he calls me to be part of a project, I know it's going to be a challenging, but I also know that through that process, by working on that project, it helps me to grow so much, and I've learned so much with Sam throughout the years. And every time he invites me to a project, I say yes without hesitation, because I know, first of all, he'll be there with me, and I know that he knows what I'm capable of. But it's always exciting and challenging to work with him.
Jader, what was it like for you?
I think my perspective was a little bit different, because we obviously had done Heroes 1, and it was great, but money ran out, and we just couldn't continue developing it. So the project was kind of abandoned for a while. We just couldn't dedicate. We had to go back to our day jobs essentially. So for many years, my cousin and I kept on bugging Sam, time and time again. It's like, oh, we need to do something with Heroes. We need to update it. We need to, let's not forget it. And I know that he hadn't forgotten. It's just that he was also working on other things, right? And we just kept on bugging him. And eventually, one of those email threads that sometimes lasted weeks and weeks and weeks and got lost in his inbox at times, ended up becoming the beginning of the conversations that led us to Heroes 2. So I'm very glad that Julio and I kept on bugging him about this, because eventually that became better than just updating the old version. It became
Yes, it's a brand new version, amazing, with a lot new. Thank you so much to both of you. As we wrap up, I want to have one last message that you want to leave with people like me who never got involved in the process of making a game. What would be one thing you want to share with us?
Well, even though you might have not been involved in making the game, you can still help developing it. You can still help it to progress. So you can use the game as an evangelistic campaign in your church. Make sure you spread the word through social media. And if you have any ideas on how to use the game through an evangelistic campaigns, please get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to hear your ideas, and perhaps we can work on something together. But please use it as an evangelistic campaign. That has always been our goal, to make sure people get to know the Bible and revive these amazing stories throughout playing the game.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think for me, it's just a realization that this project is no longer ours, right? So we've worked on it, we've poured so much into it. It's now everyone's, right? So when you download this game, it's no longer ours, it's yours to enjoy, to play, as Arnaldo said, to use this as an evangelistic tool. And people are going to use this in very creative ways. Same thing happened with Heroes 1. I think it's going to happen even more with Heroes 2, because of the possibilities there for multiplayer and so many creative ways that people can use this game. So that's what we created it for, right? It's no longer ours, it's yours. Go and have fun with it, and and enjoy.
I like that. Now it's a gift to the world. It's a piece of art that now we all get to share. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure learning more about the making of the game with you both.
Pleasure was ours.
Bye.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you.